We are live. And I love the live aspect because it's so human, and I think you can relate to that. I have the privilege of being on the set, Studio A, at MTN Studios. And I have the privilege of interviewing my guest. She is Tanae Wells. Now, I'm introducing her to most, but maybe there are those of you who don't know very much about her. Now, if you happen to be a business professional, an entrepreneur, or maybe, you know what, you've got some things under your bed, it's got dust on it, and you haven't wiped it off, I think this is going to be an enlightening and an encouraging, as well as an informative broadcast for you. So you know how we do it. I suggest that you contact some individuals and tell them, I heard SB Barber, Apostle SB Barber say, get on the phones, hit your social media, and invite others to join you. All right, let's get right to this. Again, my guest is none other than Tanae Wells. Did I say it right?
That's right. Thank you.
Right. We have to keep one another hydrated today.
Excuse me.
See, there's no shame in this at all. It's winter, but we have nothing to complain about because I think we have the best winter that we've ever experienced. Okay, she's nodding her head.
I'm not
all right.
convinced.
How long have you been in Minnesota?
Too long, all my life. I was born and raised here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can remember the snow being so piled high, and that's unusual that the Minneapolis, the St. Paul, the Minnesota Snow Emergency Group has any struggles. We have the best in the country.
We do.
But it has not been like that. It's been a little bit here, a little bit there, causing a little bit confusion. But other than that, I think it's looking pretty good. If you look out the window right now.
I saw the sun today. That was a good sign.
That was
Yes,
a good
that was
sign.
A good sign. Yes.
All right. So anyway, I wanted to take this time. I heard you talking with someone and it got my attention. Mm-hmm. And I said, this is a brilliant powerhouse. We've got to take the walls off of her and take her to audiences beyond the walls that I heard the broadcast on. And so for those of you, this is being broadcast via MTN's YouTube, and also it is shared to GM Live TV YouTube. But I wanted individuals to get inside your head about what's really happening here. First of all, most know you from Women Ventures, all right? Your role there was what?
I was the executive director.
Okay.
I think that was my title. Maybe, yeah, that's right. That's
You
was
just
it.
can't shake that ED title.
I think it was. I think I might have been president or CEO at one point in time too, but I don't remember.
All right.
Titles aren't important to me. Here I'm the chief officer of imagination.
I love that. Did you come in saying, this is the title that I believe suits me?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I did. And I got my staff to also really kind of think about, you know, we get into these kind of branded, we do it in our careers throughout our lives, where we get into these sort of titles that mean something, supposedly, to somebody. But I think Chief of Imagination, I like to think of this as Disney's studio, and I'm Walt Disney.
Wow, she's setting her sights pretty big. So I believe, hold on, fasten your seatbelt. We're getting ready to go for a ride. And I haven't been on a roller coaster in a while, so I'm looking forward to this. All right, the title, say it once again.
Chief Officer of Imagination.
Chief Officer of Imagination. How could you not miss not coming and getting on board with MTN? We're going to tell you how that's going to happen in just a moment. But nevertheless, when you were at Urban Ventures, did I say it right? Women Ventures, what was that responsibility? Not as an ED, but the organization.
We were an economic development organization who helped women start their own businesses, get careers in non-traditional employment areas that paid a higher wage, and really sort of just kind of figured out what they wanted to do in life. We had been in existence for, I don't know, about 35 years. I was a former client, actually, of Women Venture long before I became its president. And So yeah, that's what it did. It had been around for, I don't know, it's been around for about 40 years maybe.
For years.
Yeah.
Always. Has it always been headed by a female and a black female?
It was headed by one black female, that would be me.
Okay.
And they haven't had one since me, I think. And I don't think they've ever had a man at the helm. But
Okay.
no, I don't think so.
Did you notice a difference in the, shall we say, the numbers of black women coming towards the organization when you took reins?
You know, I think it's always had a significant amount of people of color and always a lot of low-income people. But I think the change for me was what we did, not who we did it to. And so under my leadership, we became an economic development organization.
Okay.
Prior to that, it was sort of a women's empowerment organization. But I really focused on the economic development and the empowerment of women from an economic development perspective.
All right. You wear multiple hats.
Yeah.
And you have that entrepreneurial side of you as well. We'll touch a little bit on that. And that really helps you understand the heart and the, shall we say, the give guidance to a woman or a man that may be looking to go beyond just doing broadcasting, but doing that as a part of a broadcast.
I like to say that I'm a social entrepreneur, which means that I like to think about the economic aspects of everything. And so, you know, what are you living your life's purpose, first of all? So are you doing what your heart tells you to do? And then is that bringing you the financial resources that you need to support yourself? So everything I do in running operations and businesses, you know, I look at, I like to say that the only difference between a for-profit and a nonprofit organization is that a nonprofit organization puts its mission before its margin. But then I always say to the nonprofit organization, if you ain't got no margin, if you ain't got no money, you ain't got no mission either.
All right.
So you have to really think about how am I going to sustain this effort for the long haul? How am I going to sustain myself for the long haul and do what I love? And I believe that that's possible.
All right. Now, when we talk about this, you're wondering possibly where are they going with this money thing? As you know, this is Monday, the business of Monday Money Talk, Black Money Team. And the reason that it is dubbed Black Money Team is to constantly keep in our viewpoint that bottom line does matter. And it is our goal to stay in a profitable capacity. Even if you're not there, that is the goal. Even if it's broadcasting, the same is the goal. All right, let's get right back to this. Now, here at MTN, what's happening here?
Well, you know,
Well, first of all, what attracted you to MTN?
it was perfect for me. I had run nonprofit organizations for 30 years, and about 9 years ago when I left Women Venture, I got this notion that nonprofit organizations should be our economic engines, and they need to think about how they diversify their funding stream, how they earn money to support what they do. So I was fortunate enough to get a Bush Fellowship, and that gave me the financial resources to really sort of pursue what it meant to be a social entrepreneur. So I did a lot of traveling. I went to South Africa and looked out Nelson Mandela's window, and also looked at a new economy. What does that look like when economy becomes the responsibility of a, you know, goes to the hands of black people? And so I did that, and then decided that I need to go to grad school. But before I could go to grad school, I had failed freshman algebra, and so I couldn't take economics courses and financial courses until I learned how to do math. And so I went back to high school. I went to the adult basic education program in the Minneapolis public schools, and with the GEDs, the folks that were getting their
Now, hold that
GEDs.
thought. Are you really capturing what this powerhouse is saying? She was ready to get the fellows. And right then and there, reality hit, and it always does. She's got to get her math. What did you say?
I went back to high school for
Went
6
back
months.
to high school. But look at who she is. So you know what? I'm telling you, pull the box out from under the bed. Stop being ashamed. Stop being afraid because you jumped some steps and now you feel like it is an impossibility. Remember, our guest right on her own turf is none other than Tanae Wells, and she is chief of
Imagination.
I mean, just that in itself ought to stoke you. All right, let's keep going.
So I went back to high school, learned how to isolate X so I could do algebra in a really kind of funny way, and then decided I need to go to grad school. And so went to grad school in 18 months, got my master's from Humphrey, and focused really heavily on business formation and creativity, and communications and creativity. So didn't understand it at that time, but then all of a sudden this opportunity came up to where all this stuff kind of came together. And so somebody approached me and told me about MTN, and I came over here for a community meeting and left thinking, ugh, I don't understand this, and this is, technology, and you understand the internet and how all this stuff works, and but I think, as it would be, my brother, who was in media, took me out to dinner and talked to me and basically told me that I could be like Walt Disney, and basically said, that our community needs people to create content. You understand how to make a business operate. You've got amazing staff that knows how to do the technology piece.
Trust me, she is not kidding. She is not kidding. If we could turn the camera around, but it's gonna happen. All right, go ahead.
We've got 3 studios. They're not all state of the art, but they are they're studios. You got a van. You got all of the things to make the content. We've been creating media for 30 years. 55% of the media that we create is created by people of African descent. And so you had all the pieces. If you look at business formation, you look at all the elements of a business. And what I do as chief of imagination, and what I do in my consulting practice, is figure out how to repurpose those elements to make money.
All right.
What is it that's going to be profitable? What is it that's going to be, what is it that's going to make this entity make money? So, you're getting a note about something, but I don't know what it is. That's the beauty of live television. Okay.
All right.
So it was like, how do you do that? And I think, as my friends would tell you, and people that know and clients will tell you, that's where I like to believe that you understand the mission and the purpose. You deal with the capacity of the organization. What are its resources that it has. And then how do you get the additional capacity to be able to do that? And then you figure out where the money is, and then you sell it, basically.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I did. So I came in with all this information and basically said, I'm going to brand and restructure MTN so it makes money.
All right. I need to let you, my favorite audience, know that. All right, blame it on me. My line was muted, radio family, all right. But we got it straight. I don't pull any punches with you. We got it straight. And that you did miss initially, the first, shall we say, really only about 3 minutes, but we covered some hot items. We will make sure that you get this when we edit that piece in it. All right, so hang with us, okay, as you were saying.
Love live television. So put this back together, which we've done now. I've been here since July. When I came on board, I told the board I'd have a strategic plan, a new business plan and a strategic plan for the organization in 90 days, and I had one in 60 days. And now we're in the process of implementing that.
All right, now, for the most part, There are those that shy away from community television for the reason of, oh, they put you in a box. We really don't have a lot of flexibility, and it's too typical. How do we squash that?
Well, it's just not true. The only localized media that exists anymore is community access television. So, I mean, if you look at what's happening on our big major television stations, they probably only do about 2 to 3 minutes of localized news. In Minnesota, it's typically weather or crime. And then its depiction of crime and criminals is not positive. It's not the narrative of our community. So community access television for the past 30 years has been the only place that that occurs. I mean, what gets produced, what our producers produce here, gets put on the air without any editing, without whatever they give us. We have to put it on the air. So there's no censorship, there's there's nothing, and there's very few places. What we hope to do is to even take advantage of that hyper local news media and really create more news media, people like yourself. We encourage and want more people who want to create media to come here. We've made it easier. We've made it more accessible, we've made it more affordable in how we've restructured, so that anybody can come and produce their own show with people that we train, or we have now the technical expertise and the resources to be able to allow people just to get in front of the camera, and we'll take care of all the technical stuff for them. So actually, the opposite is absolutely true. In some of our sister stations, and we're hoping to do that too, our sister station in Boston, for example, produces a weekly, nightly news program, and it is the nightly news for the city of Boston.
Wow.
I mean, so, and we hope to do that too.
Absolutely.
Maybe not for the city of Minneapolis, but we definitely want to do it for communities of color. We definitely want to do it for the populations that we serve, to make this a news station.
And that's what you're going to be getting here. I cannot wait for you to get a glimpse of the set that I'm going to bring to you, so that you'll be able to enjoy all of this beyond your imagination right here in the imagination of Tanae Wells. Tanae, let's just deviate just a little bit. Tell us about your upbringing.
Oh, well, I was born in Minnesota to parents. My mother's family actually is one of the oldest African American families in the state of Minnesota. My great-grandfather, great-grandfather, came to Minnesota in 1853 before it was a state, and he was out at Fort Snelling. This is 20 years after Dred Scott, so at Fort Snelling. And he was German, white, we believe. Anyways, long story, married black woman. They had 13 children, of which one was my grandfather. 6 of the children passed for white, and 7 of the children were black. My grandfather married a woman who was about my complexion, and my mother and her two brothers were born and raised in North Minneapolis in the housing project. My family was one of the first families to move into the Minneapolis housing project. My father, on the other hand, came...
What territory was that?
In Sumner-Olson, North Minneapolis.
Okay.
Yeah. Right off Olson Highway. The old Minneapolis people will know the Bucket of Blood and what happened, which is now where the Twin Stadium is. That was the black community when my grandparents were growing up. And then my father came here from Omaha as a Golden Glove fighter.
Wow.
He was cute, had a great little waist, and him in the story, and my mother looks like Lena Horne, and so, you know, the story was these two beautiful people got together and made me. I'm their oldest child.
So how could you not be?
Yeah. Ta-da. And so my dad was a very well-known, Ray Wells was his name, and he was a very well-known activist in North Minneapolis, was beat up by the Minneapolis Police Department in 1966. We sued the police department. That's how my parents actually bought their first house. So long history. Family is very well known. My brother Jay is a fireman for the Minneapolis Fire Department, and my other brother Ray, who was the one
Let's
that.
park right there, but don't lose your thought because I'm moving a little, we're in this together today.
Yeah.
But let's park. What's different about how you got with your grandfather, Ray Wells? Did I get that right?
Ray Wells is my father.
Your father. He was beat up by the Minneapolis police, correct? And yet, out of that, there was restitution, whatever you want to call it.
He sued him.
Okay, he sued them. All right. So, what may have been different then in comparison to today? We don't have really any police brutality cases that have been dealt with in the manner of such as.
Well, they have. Jamar Clark's family. Jamar Clark's family, the problem with Jamar Clark's family was difficult to, this is something we need to think about in terms of our family formation. The issue with Jamar Clark is Jamar Clark's family could have sued, but his parenting, his father, he wasn't raised by his father, he wasn't raised by his mother. He spent some time, I think, in foster care. If he had a child, he wasn't married to the mother who has the child, and all of those things prevent the family from suing. So, and I might be saying that wrong, but I've heard that there were some problems. With my father, this is back in the 1960s, he was a revolutionary. I mean, in the truest sense of the word. History, knew history, taught me history, didn't take no stuff off nobody, that kind of stuff. So it was really natural. He was accused of being drunk. He was accused of being a drunk driver. That was what they pulled him over for. They beat him up, they broke his ribs, they threw him in jail. My father had never drank. And so he had testaments from all kinds of people in the community that came and said, well, Ray Wells don't drink, so it's impossible that Ray Wells was drunk. Now, Ray Wells may have refused to, violate his rights and get out of the car or whatever. He may have told you what he thought, but he wasn't drunk. And so that was how and he had a, mesh betcher, and there were all these attorneys back at that period of time that worked with him, and that was how he sued the city.
And I mean, we could just roll out the scroll of names that we won't even touch at this time, but at least you can plug in this way. As it relates to Philandro, what might be different there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, with both Jamar Clark and Fernando, who I marched and protested with for both times with my grandchildren, I was very much reminded of what it was like to be I was in 6th grade, and it happened right around Halloween. I remember that because we went to a party at Phyllis Wheatley, and Phyllis Wheatley had these 2 sets of stairs that would go up into Phyllis Wheatley. And my dad had just gotten out of the hospital, and his ribs were wrapped. They had broke his ribs, and so he had his ribs wrapped. And I remember being really careful of him as he was walking down those stairs at Halloween. Because of that. So I related to how he felt, how helpless he felt, how we look at these. A Hmong man once told me this story that in Cambodia or Laos, they were elephants, and in the United States, there are mice, and what that does to the psyche of a man.
Okay.
And so my father was a very
Can you break that down?
protective, and they talk about the father and the daughters now. My mom used to get me dressed up when I was 2.
Okay.
And send me on dates with my father, who would take me to the cozy bar and the pool halls, and I'd be all dressed up, and that was where we go to hang out. And so that upbringing, I think it was an initial question that you said, I think really created who I am.
Okay.
Created me as a fighter, and created me as somebody who is intellectual in terms of how I think about things and the things that I've done all my life. And I know for a fact that that it was definitely, you know, being the product of two parents that loved and cared about you and really wanted life to be better for you and went about making sure that those things happen. I think that's kind of maybe the difference in terms of the upbringing, you know, the two parents that loved each other and first and foremost, and then, you know, my brothers and I always say that we benefited from that experience.
How many siblings?
I have two brothers.
Two
I'm
brothers.
the oldest girl.
The only girl?
And the only girl.
Only girl.
Yeah.
Oldest girl. Well,
Yeah.
only girl.
Yeah.
And two brothers.
Right.
Okay. How tall are they?
Taller than me. My brother Jay, my brother Jay is the tallest. I think he's about 6 feet tall, and my other brother is maybe about 5'7" or 5'8" maybe.
Jay, can you agree with what she's talking about?
He's the baby, however.
He's the baby.
So yeah, he's 15 years younger than us.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Now, looking at this from a Black money team perspective, MTM, this model, this that you envision, and not just envisioned it, you have written a plan for that. Let's open that up and explore it.
Well, again, I think the ability, especially in this political environment, in this economic environment, and in this racial environment that we're living in, the ability to be able to create content, to be able to tell our own story, and then to be able to disseminate that. You know, the internet is the great equalizer. And so to have some control over what that looks like and to be able to put up content through people like yourself and other people, I think is really a good advantage. And that actually, I mean, I started this job in July, so it was before the election. But, you know, the day I woke up and realized where we are, and now that you see, you know, what false, what do they call it? False reality or false news or whatever. Fake lies is basically what it is. So when you talk about that and when you realize that the mainstream media has been co-opted and is participating in that what we have is the ability to tell the other story.
The rawness, the raw truth from our perspective.
Right.
Correct.
Right. Democracy Now! is broadcast on our station at 6 in the morning, 5 in the afternoon, and 10 o'clock at night, which is alternative news and actually the news that we should be watching. They were talking about, on CNN the other day, they were talking about Donald Trump signing the DAPL treaty to start the pipeline again. And CNN was talking about, I almost threw the television, CNN was talking about his body language, what his hand looks like, how his suit was opened for while he was signing the bill. Not talking about the bill, the fact that he's going to pollute the water, that he's stealing this land from Native Americans, that he's got his own business interests. That's what the news should be talking about, not that he has his coat opened and whether or not he has a red tie on or a big tie. I mean, it was appalling to me what he was signing and what they were talking about. And so it is critical for us as a people. And then I do get a little emotional and the Ray Wells comes out of me. This is the fighter in me. I mean, we've got to tell the other story.
Absolutely.
And so this is a great opportunity for us to say, no, he's lying. The emperor doesn't have any clothes on. And to be able to broadcast the other side of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I've always said to you, our listening audience, it's time for the talking heads to change. And the only way that will take place is if you step up and speak up. It will only happen in that way. So here's an environment, in case you didn't know it, you can step up, create and speak up, and have it your way. Of course, and there's so much more to that. All right. Now, as far as if you would like to take a moment and introduce the listeners to MTN from an Access Pass perspective.
Well, one of the things that we did was we are changing our business model to create this model that we're just calling access and affordability. And we're in the midst of branding it. So as I talk about it, we're going to go through a much broader process with a company and people who are much more skilled at this than I am. But bottom line is that for $1 a week, if you are an individual, if you're an organization, for $5 a week, you can have access to our studios, to our equipment, and be aired online. It's that simple. $260 a year, $52, or $52 if you're an individual, $260 a year. The other piece that we've changed is that the old model of community media was where you came in and you learned how to operate the equipment, and then you could do your own show. You could bring in your own crew, you could do your own show, you'd publish your own show, and then you'd give us a DVD, and we would put you on one of our 3 channels, 16, 17, or 75. Now what we're doing is we are a production service company where you can still do that, but you can also purchase from us at a very affordable rate, where we can send crew of people that have the technical skills so that you can focus on your program. And then the people that have the technical skills from our staff will be the ones that will, run the cameras, edit the content, put the graphics on, package the show in some sort of way and put that up there. That's new. We're reaching out.
Beautiful.
We're reaching out specifically to individuals like yourself or anybody that would want to do that. Also, a big push to get nonprofits engaged. We want to really help nonprofits create better communication for their Give to the Max Day, for their websites, for telling their own story, for their funders, acknowledgement. So we want to make that service available to them, and also to small businesses.
What does that mean when you say make that service available?
Well, they would join, and they'd get an access pass for $260, and then depending upon what they want to do, they can bring in their own crew and shoot their own program and put their own stuff up, or they can hire us and we'll help them develop it.
It's like a live, almost like a telethon. Is that what you're saying?
So if somebody wants to do a telethon, they could certainly do that here. If somebody wants to, Give to the Max Day every November, gets happening, what really helps that campaign is really good video clips. Right. What really helps funders find you is really good video clips on your website that tell your story, that have been,
yes,
that kind of stuff. So nonprofits, to be able to compete, need to be able to have better communication tools. And then the other group that we also think needs to have better communication tools are small businesses. And when you think about, a 1 minute or 2 minute commercial, to produce a 1 minute or a 2 minute commercial and run it on, any one of the channels, could cost you anywhere from $20,000 to $100,000. And we could probably do it for anywhere between $500 and $1,000.
All right. Sitting in your chair as we begin to wrap up, we've got about 10 minutes here, and we'll be talking with her more. Trust me. Trust me on that. What's the fun around here? Because I get a feeling that there's a little bit of fun that goes on here.
Well, I think, we got a lot of creative people that hang out here. And so I think that's all a part of it. I think maybe one of the changes that I brought was to make us kind of feel more like a community, to make this kind of a welcoming environment. So we've got more stuff planned to make that happen. But I think just the creativity of what we do, I think the diversity of the voices, the cultural perspective of what we do, I think just kind of makes it kind of cool. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. Now, again, when you think about this model, those of you that are listening, when you think about this model, when you think about, you start to imagine, what could I do if given the opportunity? Maybe this is that opportunity that you've been waiting on and you're ready to go. I suggest to you to reach out. Stop by the studio, and the location.
We are on 18th and Central, but our entrance is at 820 18th Avenue Northeast.
And you can't
And there's a
help
big
but see
sign
the
outside.
sign, the,
Yeah,
the
there's a big
brand
sign
is
outside.
there,
Yeah.
MTN. And come in and just take some time, look around, and imagine. Imagine what this could do for you. Don't wait until this powerhouse's Disney train is up, is off and running and you can barely get in. You're literally having to wait for somebody to fall off the grid. You don't want to wait until then. I'm not waiting. What about you? All right. Would you like to take the last word?
I really want to say that it is important for us to learn to be 21st century communicators. This is an environment where there's lots of noise that's out there, and that our community, your community, really needs to learn those skills so that we can tell our own story, and so that we are empowered to be able to create the lives and businesses that we imagine.
And that's powerful, what she just said, because I know that's probably you. But our young people, they are full of purpose. Many of them are so skilled and ready. And a lot of times that's why they get off course, because they're not able to utilize those skills even in schools. And you know, that's a whole nother subject there.
Excuse me.
North has that opportunity for teenagers there, but I mean that's somewhat limited.
And we're trying to partner with high schools to be able to bring
Excellent.
our services, and more importantly, to be able to get what kids create, because kids are really creative. Our phones
Oh,
are
wow,
doing that, but
yes.
let's get it publicized and exposure and broader audiences.
It's interesting that you'd bring that up because
Excuse me.
in going into the school system, that's one of the things that we're going to focus on, is trying to identify those youth that have that creative ability, whether it is in front of the camera talent or behind the scenes talent, or they may have a business that they are working on, and they need to talk about that, and that'll be a blessing to them. Well, we want to make sure that you got it all. I know that you did, so we're going to wrap up now. You know how I do it. I am Apostle S.B. Barber, and I am your host of S.B. Barber Morning Show, and this is a special PM edition on the studios of MTN, your house. Come on and imagine with us. I've got to go now.